Mr. Magagula, thank you so much for your time. Now, there have been numerous reports of taxi drivers and commuters not complying with COVID-19 protocols. What's the situation around that on the ground?
Thank you very much for putting us on your program. Yes, we've been solving problem throughout the season. We've been working on, calling drivers and passengers to order. Every roadblock, we stop a vehicle. We discover that half of the people in the taxis are not wearing masks. And most of the time, drivers will hang the mask on their chin instead of wearing them. It is a very difficult situation when people don't want to think and don't want to take advices. This is not about us, it's about us as everyone, not only us as people who are in leadership. That's our appeal to both our drivers and our passengers at large.
Now, the Gauteng MEC for Transport went to Pretoria and he was quite impressed with some of the protocols that you had in place and in terms of compliance. But as SANTACO, you also indicated that you are very much worried about non-compliance in townships. How are you going to, deal with the situation, particularly as people come back from a long distance from their holiday destinations, coming back to the various provinces?
Look, one, we will continue with the campaigns as we are doing, especially assisted by yourself as media. Secondly, we'll be going to taxi ranks to try and enforce our protocols there, as we are aware that it's not all the drivers and also not all the passengers that doesn't care. Some of them really care. We need to compliment them, and some of them are those that are giving us problems. We will not fold our arms and say people must just look after themselves. We will continue doing our campaigns as we are doing right now.
We see that sometimes in organizations, especially big ones, such as yourself as well, that the information doesn't really trickle down to the necessary people that have to adhere to these protocols. So I'm wondering how the conversation with your drivers is currently at the moment. I mean, one of the things that the president said is that if you do not wear your mask or if you wear it incorrectly, you will be fined or you could end up in jail. Do your drivers know the implications of this?
Look, I think there's no one who did not listen to the president, and those who did not listen heard from those who were listening. When the president is about to talk, everyone is aware before or prior to the president taking his platform on media, giving people warnings. What we would like to see happening are real, actions from the law enforcement as well for those or to those who do not want to listen, because it's not a question of people are not listening. It's a question of people do not want to listen and do not want to comply. Therefore, those are people who want to prove that they can do as they wish, and we need law enforcement to give the examples that they were doing or giving during the first lockdown. The law enforcement need to be very strong and not lenient about this anymore.
Now, during the hard lockdown in 2020, we know that you were badly affected from a livelihood and financial position as the taxi industry. And now I want to, understand how impacted are you as it relates to the health constraints and concerns. I mean, how badly affected is your industry as it relates to your drivers' safety and health during this time?
Look, in terms of loss, it continues, to hit us very hard. But unfortunately, we all understand that it's about life-saving situation. We hope that the Minister of Transport is looking at this. The Treasury is also looking at this. As we begin the year, the President of SANTACO, Mr. Taibosh, is planning to meet with the private sector, the banks, the manufacturers, to discuss this and look at how the taxi industry can be compensated in terms of these losses that everybody can see. There's unfortunately nothing we can do about. Unfortunately, with the taxi, we're not like a tuck shop or a supermarket that can sell what is left yesterday. If we lose the day, we've lost those passengers who were supposed to be in that vehicle, and we never recover them. No way we can.
Talking about losses from a financial perspective now, the petrol price is coming up. Are you expecting to increase the price of fuel or the levy to the passenger as well? What is going to happen in terms of how it's going to impact on the passenger?
Well, it is very unfortunate that we also now facing a further loss of an increase on the fuel. But there are no intentions of immediately increasing taxes in order to punish the passengers. However, if it continues, we may issue notices and inform passengers that we are going to increase. At this point, there are no plans to recoup or recover the losses of the fuel that is going to be increased tomorrow.
Just in terms of, support that you are getting from government, how are relations there now, given some of the contentious issues that you were facing as an industry with the Ministry of Transport in particular? How are relations now?
Well, there was never a bad relationship. It was a question of the minister understood the situation that we were facing, and it was a question of raising our voice so as for ourselves to be heard. It was not a question of fighting against each other, and the relationship continues to be very good. It was never sour. It sounded sour, but it was not sour. It was a question of negotiations. So in the negotiations, it's a give and take. The one lose the other, and the one win the other. So it actually, what is happening, the minister is a very matured person. He understood. And after this, we all went back to the table looking for a win-win situation. And that is why we ended up with a very successful Lekgotla, which the future looks very bright.
Now, one of the other issues that's always been on the table year in and year out, particularly around this time, holiday time, is the roadworthiness of taxis. That's always been a concern. Now, is this address, how are you addressing it? Firstly, as some of your members are transporting people, from outside of the various provinces coming into their final destinations?
Well, having been to a number of roadblocks with traffic officers, RTMC themselves, if you go and look at the statistics there, of maybe 400 vehicles or 300 vehicles, which are taxis that passes a roadblock, maybe 3 or 4 will be found to be unroadworthy. So in that sense, it says to us, the media like yourselves, are assisting us, and most of the people, not just some, but most of the operators and drivers are receiving the messages, and they are acting positively to the messages if you look at the statistics exactly of what is happening on the road right now.
Just as we wrap the interview, what is the way in which, the passengers can also feel secured in a particular vehicle that they're traveling in, particularly where they see that the driver is infringing on some of the roads or even COVID-19 related regulations? Where can passengers go to complain and just basically air their grievances?
Since we all know that the regulation is low, one of the numbers that passengers can phone is definitely 10111, but also they can also phone us, and we can inform our Hlokomela unit which is on every route across the country to go assist there to enforce the law. Our number is 073-356-8500, 24 hours.
Mr. Magagula, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That's where we have to leave it for now. Bafana Magagula, he is the operations manager at SANTACO.